Right, so the junior doctor strike, their 4-day strike ends today, and to my knowledge, not one single mainstream news programme has mentioned the very simple yet very salient reason that they're going on strike, and that is that they've been offered just 2% of a wage rise, with inflation still at 10.4%. Nor is the fact that they've had their wages depressed since 2008 and the global financial crisis has been mentioned, something the now Prime Minister of this country, Rishi Sunak, then working for investment bank Goldman Sachs, may have had a part to play in, caused by the selling of bad debts, subprime mortgages and the like as it was. People were punished then by the profligacy of banksters, and they're being punished by the same people now, having chosen to lead the country by the rancid party in government as Sunak was. Over that time period, 26% has been wiped off the value of a typical junior doctor's wages, and allowing for that 10.4% inflation rate right now, pay restoration to put their wages back where they should be right now, if not for the actions of people, exactly like Rishi Sunak, like Sajid Javid as well. He was another one in their former professions, and that's a pay rise of 36.4%, though junior doctors and their union, the British Medical Association, have kindly rounded that down for the government to just 35%. A 35% pay rise. You can imagine the field day the mainstream media hackerati have had with that gem, can't you? Doctors are trying to bankrupt the UK. Doctors robbing the taxpayer's wallet. Militant woke medics scamming you for your cash. The headlines write themselves, don't they? Though I wrote those ones, just so as you know. Believable, though, aren't they? Such is what we've come to expect from some wings of the very hard-right billionaire press baron media. Well, speaking of, one junior doctor got interviewed by snake oil incarnate Kay Burley on Sky when she asked the medic, "We're told 35% is a starting point for a pay rise. Given that you're never going to get that, why not start with a number that is more realistic?" Kay Burley, never send her out to start a negotiation, folks. She doesn't quite understand how they work. The response from the junior doctor was to say, though, "So I think realistic is an interesting question, and so it's a big number because it's an awful lot to have lost." And she's not wrong. That is literally what they've lost. To give them that just makes up for that loss that they've seen over the last 15 years. If pay doesn't rise to match, why stay in that profession? What happens to our health service then? What price do you put on having a health service? The one person you want to see dealing with this mess is, of course, the Health Secretary, Steve Barclay. It is his job, after all, but where is he? He hasn't been seen once during this 4-day strike action. He hasn't offered to negotiate. 350,000 procedures cancelled, and he has been totally absent, AWOL, derelict in his duty. What are we paying that man for? Where the hell is he? He's on holiday. Despite knowing this action was coming, because they're always announced beforehand, they have to be, he went ahead and buggered off on his hollybobs. If you've been inconvenienced, had an important appointment, maybe an operation cancelled, be comforted at the thought that the one man who could have prevented this action going ahead by making a proper pay offer instead of 2%, which is a massive real terms pay cut on top of all the money that they've already lost, he decided that instead of doing that, he'd rather sun himself on a beach somewhere or something of that ilk. A lot of junior doctors are thinking likewise. Australia would pay them tenfold what's on offer here. Many are going there or elsewhere, making similar, more attractive offers for our NHS workers. Many have already gone. Others are still thinking about it. Our health service has never been more precarious. Staffing has already been unsafe for much of the last decade. And the Tories are determined to make it worse because, as we all know, ever since the reprobates got back into power and conned the public into keeping them there for 13 years, they've been softening up the health service to see it collapse. Every election, we on the left, as part of the then leftist Labour Party and outside of it, have warned the NHS is not safe in the Tories' hands. And so we keep on getting proven right, but it doesn't cut through at the ballot box. 83% of the British public, according to a GMB poll, back the doctors here. We want a functional health service, even as the Tories instead do not serve our interests, simply those of private healthcare, the cash they can make off a lucrative post-politics boardroom post of some such, all for services rendered. Where Labour once stood for the NHS's greatest ever achievement, bar none, the party that created it after all, it is now run and led by a Tory B team, the likes of Keir Starmer and his shadow health secretary, the loathsome shiny-faced Wes Streeting, have themselves taken cash from private healthcare, showing Labour itself is no longer on the side of doctors, on the side of nurses, on the side of our NHS. Not in Keir Starmer's opinion is it Labour's greatest achievement either, since he's gone on public record as saying he thinks that NATO is. Another warmonger cast in the mould of Tony Blair, if ever there were warning signs about him there. Anyway, to no surprise in light of all of that, Starmer has come out on the side of the Tories in all of this. They are more his natural bedfellows after all. Starmer said on camera, "I don't think 35% is affordable, but I do think the role of government is to get in the room, around the table, and negotiate a settlement." He's very good at stating the obvious, isn't he? At least insofar as you need to get in the room to talk to such people in order to negotiate, something Steve Barclay cannot do from whatever holiday destination he's chosen. Why has he not been dragged back, kicking and screaming from his holiday, to deal with this as well, by the way? Sajid Javid, once upon a time, he was hauled back from Australia to deal with the strikes happening at Tata Steel a few years ago. Do you remember that one? Although I do also remember Dominic Raab being unable to return from his holiday when Afghanistan turned to hell in a handcart because apparently the sea was closed, or some such nonsense he clearly made up to not get back and do his job. Perhaps the sea is closed on Steve Barclay as well. Who knows? Funny things seem to happen to Tories on holiday, doesn't it? At any rate, the massive Tory point missed by Starmer in his little admission there was that he also thinks 35% is unaffordable. Says who? I've said this in so many videos now, it's maddening. I seem to be like a broken record on it, and it's maddening because I do it as a result of mainstream media never saying the same thing. And that is we, the UK, sole owners and distributors of the pound sterling, cannot and will not ever run out of money. And anything we choose to make affordable, we can pay for simply by typing the right numbers into a computer. Money comes out of the other end. It's a magic money tree, literally. Taxation taken simply has the effect of destroying some of this printed, newly created money, balancing inflation. That's literally all taxation does. It doesn't actually pay for anything in and of itself, and I can prove that simply by asking the question, when was the last time the government had to wait to spend money on something due to waiting on a tax collection? It never happens, and this is why. Not restoring NHS workers' pay to where it should be is a political choice. Think about it another way. If more money was put in the more people's pockets to make their day-to-day living comfortable, we are a very wealthy country after all. We keep getting told this, richest country in the world or some such. All paying more tax, enabling the government to print more money to pay for more stuff. Instead, our economy flatlines. We're in recession apparently again, behind even sanction-hit Russia, according to the IMF latest forecast for this year. And you have to ask yourself why. More taxation means the government can print more money for spending. A wealth tax would be an instant injection, but this government operates in reverse to what is best for this country. The junior doctors' pay issue highlights this because the mantra is that it's unaffordable, but it is only unaffordable because those in power have made it that way, have decided that is the case. And that is what they're telling us, even though it is very, very dishonest. A wealth tax, tax the rich until their pips squeak, as Ollie Dugmore Politics Joe said the other day, would make this easily possible without affecting inflation, even if they only went part of the way there, such as equalising capital gains taxes, for instance, the tax paid on dividends and rental income, unwaged income, and that of income tax, the tax on wages. Refer back to my previous points too. If taxation only balances inflation, increasing wages will increase tax returns on said wages, so wage increases are self-sustaining therefore. They pay for themselves. They don't impact on inflation. So why are they unaffordable? The simple answer is they aren't. Anyone saying otherwise has a complete other agenda in play here, be they Sunak's Tories or, by Starmer's own words, him and his Labour Party. None of them are on the side of junior doctors in this dispute, and therefore none of them are on the side of any ordinary working class people of this country. Starmer says it's unaffordable, though. Let's eviscerate him a bit more on this score, because Labour are supposed to be saying the opposite, aren't they? Let's really expose his hypocrisy here. MPs over the same period in time, 2008 to now, the period that the junior doctors have lost money, have had a pay rise equivalent to 42.7%. They've paid themselves more, even as junior doctors had their wages depressed. How is that even fair? They've had more than the junior doctors are even asking for now. How is that politicians taking their share of the pain? Well, it isn't it? They never do, and what they do usually exposes the lie as well, often carried in their narrative. If you factor in their overly generous, too often abused expenses on top of that, they've never had it so good as the rest of us suffered years of pain and austerity. There was money for their pay rises. Why not for everyone else then? Now, of course, Starmer wasn't an MP back in 2008. He'd just become Director of Public Prosecutions, as it happens, and he had an expense account there too. Starmer spent across the 5 years that he was DPP, from 2008 to 2013, almost £250,000 in expenses. And when you consider the job earned Starmer over £1 million in his 5 years there, together with a pension pot of some £336,000, you better have some justification in your use of the expense account, as all too many MPs, as we regularly see, fall afoul of. Check out Starmer's spending during his time as DPP, though, especially relevant since he is also on record as saying, "With my Labour government, every pound will be precious." Well, they were precious to him. He spent £160,000 on a chauffeur-driven car to drive him to work and back whilst he was Director of Public Prosecutions, despite the fact he only lived 4 miles away from the office. This bill would have been higher had he not stopped using the car in 2010 when a news story broke about what he was doing. That embarrassed him a little bit, but it was working out at some £250 a day, charged to us for little more than his own vanity. There's his honesty and integrity for you guys, only on show when he gets caught. He flew first class or business class to 4 different continents during his time as DPP, charging over £20,000 to the public purse, and spent a further £20,000 on 4 flights to Washington, D.C. And on one occasion that he went there, he charged us for a taxi, costing just £7.24. The woman who took over from him, Alison Saunders, accrued a travel bill just a third of the size of Starmer's, and her run was through some of the most egregious, rampant austerity years at that. Keir Starmer's Labour, like Rishi Sunak's Tories, are peddling the same affordability myth, the lie that we cannot afford to pay our essential service workers a fair wage for their skills and their expertise. And if they can't get that here, then they will go somewhere else where the opportunities for them to do so are also there. Starmer has demonstrated he is just as wasteful with public funds as his Tory counterparts. He is just as beholden to donations from private health as well. So when people such as myself say there's no difference between Labour and the Tories, voting for one to get the other out will change nothing, here is a prime example of just that, straight from the horse's mouth. Thanks for watching. If you appreciated this video, please do hit like and subscribe, leave a comment and hit the notification bell too so you don't miss the next one. Also, look out for me on social media and other interesting stuff by clicking on the Linktree link in the comments below, and I will see you next time. Cheers, folks.